I'll just say the start of it again.
Don't start mentioning names and you go, no, I don't know them. And
No, you won't. No, you won't know. You won't know her. She had your first book, and she had put it through a guillotine. It gets better, and laminated all the pages and put them on a ring binder.
Yes,
and
I've heard of people who have done that.
Yeah. And then she was like, I just pull these out. It was interesting.
I've now Kindled it. Well, I haven't Kindled it. One of my other sons Kindled it.
Oh, wow.
So the first one.
Kindle.
Yeah,
Oh.
so you can get it on Kindle.
Right,
Yeah,
sorry.
Kindle.
My brain went, why have you burnt your book?
No,
I
not
I
Kindling.
went real forest school and just was like,
No, he put it on Kindle for me.
oh, that's cool.
For the first one, for the people that like to tear things up
Yeah.
and laminate them.
Cool.
Harder to throw around the woods. So it's just the first one. I mean, we've started.
Oh, we
I'm
recorded.
just, I'm just
Okay,
going to
shall we
start
just-
it as a vague fade in.
Yeah, okay.
Hello.
Hi. Welcome. Now, I have issues with pronunciation.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Let's not
So
commit.
we have with us Tracey Maciver or Maciver?
Maciver.
Maciver.
But you can call me anything you like.
Okay, cool. Tracey Maciver, author of 3 books?
3 books.
3 books.
So far.
So far.
So far.
So almost 4.
Oh.
Oh, excellent. Oh, cool. We'll talk about that in a sec.
Yeah.
Was this your first one?
That was my first one, yes.
Which is activities, games and challenges for learning outside the classroom, which we were just saying kind of, I think for a lot of outdoors and forest schooly people is a bit like a sort of Bible.
Top
it's
of the
like
reading list.
Yeah, and they're all dog-eared and full of notes and folded down pages and post-it notes and all the rest of it. So I'm sure that loads of people listening will have your book. If not, why haven't you got it? Get it now. And then what about the early years, right? 100 years for early years?
Yes, that was one which was far more directed by the publisher.
Right.
So it didn't have all the things in that I wanted to have it in. And it was also in their format, so I wasn't as happy or proud of that one as I am of the other 2.
Right. And then the third one
Because
is
there's
number
a follow
2
on to
of-
this.
Is all the things that I forgot to put in the first one.
Oh, cool.
So
Wow.
And there's more tools, isn't it, in the second one?
it is tools, because I was asked a lot about why haven't you got anything with tools, because I aimed the first book to be done by anybody. So you don't need to have any specific training to do any of the activities in the first book.
Right.
Whereas the second book is more for forest school leaders and people who have got a lot of tool experience working with children.
Okay. And was that because people were asking for it, or is it something you felt it needed?
Yeah, no, people were asking for it.
Okay.
Yeah. Could you tell us a bit about your journey into the outdoor world? Like, where did you start
Yes.
and how did you...
Right, well, many years ago.
Sounds like the beginning of a very nice story.
I have got lots of children, and my eldest son, who is now 28, was very much into being outdoors. And one day I went upstairs and found that he'd been whittling his bunk bed with nail file. And I thought, okay, this is something that we need to redirect into something else. So I actually went out and bought a few knives and things, and we went out and started doing whittling and making things outside.
That's a cool mum.
That is. And had you already been doing things like that, like in your earlier life, or had you never really?
Well,
whittled
I
before?
have always worked with children.
Yeah.
I was, to start with, I mean, going way back, so many centuries ago, I was a nanny and then a childminder. Then I became an early years teacher. I also ran beavers. But I was always out and about with my children. When I went off to university to do my early years degree, I discovered forest school, and as an early years teacher it all made sense. It
Yeah.
was all the things that I'd already found with my own children and with all the children that I worked with, that if you take them outside then you can get so much more from all the children, especially the ones, the ones at the back of the class who were flicking the other children.
Yeah.
Those ones.
Yeah.
And it just worked.
Yeah.
So I went on a bit of a mission, and I did my forest school training with Gordon Woodall, which was absolutely fantastic and very inspiring. And then then I was working for Plymouth Young Persons Agenda 21, which is an environmental charity, no longer around, I'm afraid, with a man called Bran Howell, who now works down at the Eden Project. But that was great fun, and our mission was to get as many children out as possible. And so we would go off with all the different schools in Plymouth and take children out to the woods and do lots of exciting activities with them. And it was at the very beginning of forest school, where you would go to a head teacher and say, this is what I would like to do with children. And they would go, what? You're mad.
Right.
You can't do tools or,
you think
or
that's
let,
changed?
let children free. I mean, this was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And but we had a few very brave head teachers who let us guinea pig their children. We took them off, and it was amazing. And the children just started to shine. And I did lots of different projects, depending on who had funding and for what. So I had one school that only had funding for MFL. So we did the whole of the sessions with a French theme.
Oh my gosh!
So and then we had traveller children, and they were trying to get them more integrated into the classroom and with their peers. And so we took out all these children that were at the very bottom of the pecking order, and by the time we finished, they were at the top of the pecking order, because they could light fires, they could build dens, they knew what you could eat, they knew what would hurt you. They were fantastic. Also did it with from early years. I used to have a non-walkers group, so it was babies in pushchairs, and all the way up through to secondary school children, and I had a group of young adults, all with their very own ASBOs. That was an interesting one.
Wow.
Men who'd had heart surgery and were feeling quite depressed with all the medication that they were on. That was the scariest one. Forget the ASBOs.
Yeah. You didn't have anybody die on you in the woods,
No,
did
but
you?
we did have a nurse with
What a
us.
question! What if that had been a yes?
I was a bit.
I'm just intrigued.
I was a bit worried when we were making them walk up a hill.
Yeah. Wow.
But
and was that all with the same charity? That was all the charity in Plymouth?
that was, and then eventually when that charity closed down, I set up Forest School Plymouth. And a lot of the schools that I was working with were saying, well, can you teach somebody in our group to do it? So I signed up to become a college by myself.
Yep.
And that was interesting as well. And I had a lady who was who used to check all the papers and everything else, and she was a hairdresser, because there wasn't anything. So this long ago, there just wasn't anything around. So we did that, and then I got quite a few people trained up in Plymouth using the Whitley campus in Plymouth, because we had a great big woods behind, and that was wonderful. I had my own cupboard there, and all the children, when I used to walk into the playground, they would go, "It's a crocodile lady!" Because we used to play Hey Mr. Crocodile a lot in the woods. But yes. And then I was made an offer by Duchy College which is in Cornwall, to go and work with them and set up Forest School. So I became an early years lecturer there, and then we started from the very beginning of setting up Forest School training. And it's still going, sort of, I think it's about 12 years now it's been going. And I carried on doing that until I had a surprise, and that was Dan, who's now 8. And yes, so that was great. So we brought it up from absolutely nothing to training lots of people through Cornwall College. And
That's brilliant.
it was fun.
Yeah.
And so that was like my first baby, and then Dan came along.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I was surprised, interesting you saying about being the kind of early years forest school person, and I'm interested to know how many sort of teacher training provisions do add some kind of specific outdoor element to their training. I don't know whether it's...
Mine didn't.
I've not heard of any, but it seems so
now
nonsensical.
I was going to say, when I was working at Duchy College, it was a case of the girls who were on the early years course we made sure that we took them all out to the forest and that they all had a forest school component to their
Right.
Which is
to
how it
their
should
early
be,
years
right?
qualifications.
I think.
But I was also working a lot with Plymouth University, and we used to take all their students out as well, all their teacher training ones.
Yeah.
So yes,
Yeah.
it should be integrated
It should be.
into every teacher training course.
Yeah.
I think it's a toss-up, isn't it? When you talk about teacher training courses, and you could either look at it as like a sort of funnel to be like, look, we need to produce teacher type X at the end, or is the point of the course to show you all the different types of teacher you could be?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? To be like, oh, you could be a teacher that's quite outdoorsy, or you could be one that does loads of science experiments, or you could do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
feel like a lot of colleges and universities sort of pick an either. They go, it's a smorgasbord, and you might not be great when you come out, but you'll have had lots of tasters. Or they go, we're going to narrow you down into like, you will come out, you know, essentially as a like battle hardened teacher.
There are lots of university courses closing down now, and more on the job training, isn't there? Which is
Yes.
such a shame, because then you only get your experience from the place you're working. You get that kind of like, oh, okay, they do it this way, so this is what I've got to do. So you don't get that time to reflect and
it's
challenge.
Yeah,
and,
challenge is the difficult
and
thing.
go,
I think.
actually, you're doing this, but why? And can I bring this other idea in that I've learnt, like forest school, to the setting? And that's going to be gone if it continues down that route of just jump in the deep end, just get on with it. You can learn on the job. And
Well, it encourages teachers not to be, as I think you and I both were, troublemaker teachers.
yeah,
Where like, if you're on something like a skit's still a thing. Do people still do skits?
is that on the job?
Oh, basically on the job teacher
Yeah.
training. But you can't challenge the head teacher if the head teacher is also the one that is signing you off and saying
Yes.
you're a good or
Yes,
bad teacher.
completely. And in some cases paying you, right? Some people are paid on the job now.
But it doesn't
as
allow
well,
you the
so-
freedom.
Yeah, one of my sons has been in that position, but he was doing secondary IT, so
Yeah.
definitely not out in the woods.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think there should be more, you know, you want to bring people in and have your team grow and develop and be challenged and have a setting constantly go, oh, well, we didn't thought about that, so now we're better than we were, and now, rather than just getting people in and going, just knuckle under, all right? We know what works, just
Teach the lesson plans.
head down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you've successfully sort of put something in that does challenge that.
Yeah.
So what from there? What made you think? Because I primarily came across you as like an author first, and it's only afterwards that I've, learned that this is all the stuff you've done. So, did you say before that it was a handbook you made, your first book?
Oh, yes. Well, I was going to say when I used to train students to become forest school leaders,
Yeah.
we used to have an activity diary,
Right.
and I used to make sure that we went through about 20 activities during our training course, so that they all had something in their pocket that they could bring out at any time, and which included games and craft activities, and everybody said this is really useful, and I had people coming from other courses asking for the activity diary,
Right.
who had been trained by other people. And so I kept sending it off. I said, but you really need to experience it. So I was putting in more and more details. And then I became pregnant, a rather late pregnancy. And the person who was taking over my job was going to be Miranda when I was on maternity leave. And she was another early years teacher who I'd trained. And she was a bit worried about how she was going to remember
Be
Yeah.
the crocodile one.
Yeah.
all of the things I do, because I used to get a bit bored and do different ones each time and try out new activities with different groups
Yeah.
of students and stuff, as well as working with children and trying out lots of games and stuff with children. And so she said, I'm never going to remember it all. And so the book actually started as an extension to the activity diary,
Right.
writing down information for Miranda so that she knew what she what she had to do, with a list of what she needed to take with her, what she needed to prepare in advance. And while I was on maternity leave, it got bigger and bigger and bigger, because I kept thinking, oh, I didn't put in this activity, or I wanted to put in that. And
It's a very organic.
so
Yeah.
it
But it
didn't-
reads like that. It reads very,
Yeah.
it is like it is everything you need in order to do that activity. It's so well explained, even down to the what are we learning from this activity. So you've got a bit of like, I don't know, it's almost like backup that if you are ever challenged, which as a forest school leader, you find yourself in that position quite often.
Well, that was so Miranda knew what to say.
Well, that's what I mean. It's sort of like you feel it, don't you? And you're
Yeah.
leading it with the kids. You can feel and experience, and it's like an instinctual thing. You're like, oh, look at this learning that's happening, and you know it. You don't need to write it down, but because it's there in that paragraph, you've got that backup that if somebody does challenge or somebody does
Yes.
go, oh, but what's the point of this? So that when you meet those people, you've got it there,
Yes.
which is good. Yeah. It's incredibly
It does
useful book.
read like being talked to as well,
Yeah.
which I quite liked. I don't know how much it was or wasn't edited, but
That one wasn't edited very much at all. One of my daughters went through it and picked out a few spelling mistakes.
Yeah.
There are still a few spelling mistakes in the first one because they've been pointed out by other people.
Right.
But that's towards the end of the book, so I don't think she actually finished.
Right. Got a bit bored.
So, there's,
Yeah.
there's a few grammatical errors in that one.
Yeah.
but that's quite nice because I feel like there's lots of it sort of stood out to me because it sort of sits in like that like outdoorsy bushcraft shelf, if you know what I mean. And lots of it is Ray Mears and Bear Grylls and people that write proper. No, I don't mean it's not proper. I mean books that are very directive and very like you do 2 quarter cuts here and you place your stick here and that's how you do it. And then reading this, it's like having a chat with someone or someone just going, oh, here's a game I play.
Yeah.
And it was much more accessible.
Well, it was based on how I train people as well. I'm very
Right.
informal. I
Yeah.
do swear quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, when I was pregnant with Dan, most of my time, when I was very big, I was laying on the floor of the forest directing everybody with a great big stomach. But
You can swear if you want. We've already,
Yeah.
the only review we have on iTunes is someone telling us they wish we didn't swear. So
But yeah.
but yes, I mean, sort of my forest school leadership courses are not really for children
Yeah.
because it's a lot of anecdotal evidence as well as we go through,
Yeah.
and saying, well, I've tried it out with this sort of group and I've tried it out with that sort of group,
Yeah.
but yes.
Yeah.
I talk about I'm a more sweary person, and I've said that I feel like this is a complete tangent now. It's not about your books, but I feel like I use swearing as a shorthand to like how important something is.
Yes.
If I can go, you don't want to get like fucking burnt, is easier than going like you wouldn't want to get a 3rd degree burn on the thing that you just a swear word cuts out a lot of.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just like, listen, because this is important. I need to
Yeah.
jar it in your head somehow.
I think we just get excited when we're talking to a group of adults as well about, especially adults that haven't really done any outdoorsy stuff and they're working
Yes.
with kids but they haven't done any outdoorsy
Yes.
stuff, and then we get all kind of like more and more excited and passionate, and then it's all the F-bombs keep getting dropped. I can tell as soon as Lewis lets the first one go, I was like, that's it now, it's going to be sweary world. Yeah.
But from all my students, I mean, I've built up quite a friendship group actually, and I'm still in touch with many of them. And so my best friend is actually somebody that I trained many, many years ago on my very first course. So, but yes.
Lovely.
And she doesn't mind swearing.
That's good. Kind of a friend that doesn't like swearing. That's tough, hard work.
Oh yeah, imagine having to watch what you said around a friend. No, you just want to be no filter.
Yeah.
Just tell
Yeah.
me the
Yeah.
thing. So I wondered if you had read the Guardian article that came out a couple of days ago about Forest School and about branding.
I think
you
the,
read
title,
this
the
one?
headline is Forest School is yours, just a marketing
Oh,
gimmick.
Yes.
Yes.
That's been.
The same
Yeah.
thing's been brought up a few
Yes.
times.
Yeah.
But the Guardian, this week put out a big thing and it had lots of responses.
Because of the new book that's coming out, isn't it? Which is Critical Aspects of Forest Schools, I think. Is that the title? It's out in August.
That's- yeah.
I'm not sure what it was called, but it's been a long-running argument for
Yep.
many, many years. I mean, when I started, Forest School was something that nobody had heard of, and we were out on our own, really. I mean, I did my training, but there was no hard and fast rules. There was no Forest School Association telling you what you could or couldn't do. And I'm still in two minds about having an organisation telling you what you can and can't do. But it did grow very organically, and we were sort of left on our own to do what we wanted to do. And the only way that you're going to find your true voice as a forest school leader is by trying things out, experimenting, and if it's no good, junking it and moving on to the next thing.
Yeah.
I think that's part of what makes it tricky is from the outside, from people who aren't involved in forest school, when they, I think, hear and try and understand about this debate that's happening sort of internally about what is and isn't forest school, and then they sort of expect that there'll be some sort of, the dust will settle and then you could go to any forest school in the country and see exactly the same practice and exactly the same thing. But actually, what you can still have loads of forest school, but inside of it, you bring to it like, oh, we're, Gemma and I are musicians, so there's a bit more music in ours, and somebody else might have been ex-forces, so they do a little bit more survival stuff, but it is all forest school. And I think there's, inside of forest school, there's a lot of people that can look at like a broad range and go, this is all forest school.
Yes.
And there's some people that want to push for like a very narrow,
a tick box,
a lesson plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm very much against that. I think that forest school should be whatever the heck you want it to be. Yes, it should be outside. I think that's the one criteria that's pretty important. I have been to see some places and it's half.
But what about when it's raining?
I was going to say, don't you know it's all about the clothing?
Sorry, yeah. I think, because then so where do you see your books as fitting in that? Because some people I know would take the books and say, like, oh,
that's not
this
forest
is how
school.
you play the game, and this is, I'm not, I'm just...
Yeah, well, mine is to give, my books, especially the two that I did myself, are to just try and get as many people outdoors as possible. So whether people are feeling confident, whether they've had the training, whether they're about to embark on the training, whether they're in the middle of it, or whether they're old hands. And it's just to get as many children outside. I mean, a lot of the activities that I've done can be done anywhere. So it doesn't need a woods. It can be done on the beach, it can be done in the playground, it can be done, sort of on a football field. So long as you've got a little bit of nature around you, a lot of things can be achieved in the first book. In the second book, it's sort of more veering to the sorts of things that you might do in the woods. But when I was starting, it was something that, I was going to say there was no hard and fast rules. When I did the first book, there was still no hard and fast rules because the Forest School Association wasn't really established at that point, and they hadn't even set out the criteria, I don't think. They might have just, I'm not sure. But I mean, now it's, forest school is this and this. Well, only because somebody has decided that that's what forest school should be.
It's sort of like what you were saying about that that quote that you'd read about the quiver and the arrows.
It was saying that outdoor learning is the quiver and forest school is one of the arrows inside the quiver, and you choose which arrow, and kayaking is another arrow and bushcraft is another one, and you choose the arrow that's appropriate for your target. And saying it's not always appropriate to say, forest school is not the golden child and nothing else is valuable.
It's not,
and I think that's kind of one of the nice things is that your books can be used by.
Well, I was going to say, and they are used by sort of scout groups and sort of teachers in schools, and we sold a lot to primary schools and a lot to nurseries that don't necessarily have forest school but want to introduce some outdoor learning.
Yeah.
And that's where I go off and do a lot of my training. Oh, look, a squirrel.
We've got some really young squirrels that are, I think, siblings, and they're in a little group and they're really exploring. Like, they were in the woodpile the other day and they were like, obviously talking to each other, like, come in here, it's really fun. Don't run away, hide and seek. One thing that we get when we have adults here on training is a lot of the time we do some firelighting with them and go, okay, so this is how we would do it with kids. This is our way of doing it. So if you wanted to go and do some firelighting with kids, this is a way you could do it. And so many people say, I didn't think you were allowed. Like, you're not allowed, are you, until you've got your level 3 forest school? Like, it's like the law. Like, that's really interesting. Like,
You can't see, but Tracey is visibly uncomfortable with that
there's a
statement.
little eyebrow raise there. So then I think I said to a lady the other day, so if you were with your own kids in the back garden, would you not be allowed to, for example, light the barbecue with them until you had your level 3, like, or light a bonfire in the garden? You know, you can do, obviously if you're working on a school site or you're working on somebody else's land, you know, you've got to make sure that they're happy with you doing it and check all the insurance and all that kind of malarkey. But apart from that, you know, if you're a childminder working in your garden, there is no law that states that you can't light some cotton wool with a fire striker with your children. And the people are like, oh, you mean I could just do this? Like, I don't have to go and spend £1,000 on some training.
We were doing this at nursery before forest school was even a thing.
I know, and that is a kind of, I guess, a negative
tools.
Side of the kind of forest school as a term, as a fixed term, as a kind of, it is forest school if it meets these principles. And some people haven't heard of it at all, so they're just, you know, maybe taking your book and running with it and just going with it, and that's all good. But some people who are kind of halfway in between, who've heard of it, are sort of intrigued and interested in taking kids outdoors, but aren't trained, might go, oh, okay, well, that's not for me then, because I haven't trained, and I've got to train if I'm going to do anything outdoors, which is, I guess, I'd say we're pretty pro the kind of forest school principles and trying to we've kind of made that decision. I think that our sessions are as close as possible to the forest school principles, at the same time as bringing our own personalities to it, just as you say, and that everybody's
I think it's more it's more of a like we're doing what we want to do, and it happens to meet those principles. It's not a like, we don't sit down and go, oh fuck, we haven't done number 3 for a while. We better do some.
Oh no, we did that the other day, and that isn't forest school, so we better stop. Like, you know, we've never had to do that. It's
I was going to say, forest school, if it meets all the criteria, then that is sort of perfect. It's heaven. It's wonderful. But it doesn't happen that often. You have to have a group that is coming to you along. But if you've only got a group for, say, 6 weeks, the first 3 weeks might be sorting out about how to put their wellies on. And how to get outside and not be worried about getting a bit of mud on them. And it takes that long to establish. You're not going to go in on week 1 with children and get forest school. It's all working towards it. Once you get there, it is perfection. And all the children are busy, and it takes very little sort of input
it's a
from
light
the adults.
hand, isn't it?
Yes, it's just
facilitating.
You're just there to pick up the pieces if anybody falls over, or to give them the tools that they need to do the job that they want to do. But and that is wonderful when it happens, but it doesn't happen immediately. It's not something you can't just wave a magic wand and say, I'm doing forest school, and it happens. It doesn't. A lot of children that I've worked with have been very worried about being outside. I mean, we had some children that couldn't walk down a slope, and we had to have ropes and sort of let them go down, and sort of, and it took a long time to get there. But when it does happen, you just think, success.
That is kind of one of the reasons that I quite like the principles being written down, though, in that sense, that if you are working with a group or with a school, for example, where you're going in and you've got, you know what it can be when it is that heaven at the end of the road, that you can go, it's almost like a persuasive tool that you can, if they say to you, I just want you to come in like maybe once a term and just do like a day with them, that you can, if you want to, pull up, if you want to call it forest school, actually I'm going to really push for, I'm going to take this same group every week for 6 weeks or longer ideally, and you've got that kind of tablet, you know, chiseled in stone, and you can go, well, you know, if you are, what you want as a head teacher sometimes is, I want to be able to say that our school does forest school because that's really attractive and it will gain me some bums on seats. But then you as a practitioner can come in and go, well, actually, let's do it properly if we're going to do it. And
it's harder to do that on your own, to just be one pillar and say, actually, I've got principles, and the Lewis principles are that it must be long term, you know, whereas if the FSA, I think, does give people a bit like a big looming presence to say, it's not just me being really fussy. It helps, you know, push that through. And because those are things that we would be pushing for anyway, it's useful to have that. But then
also you don't want to go, oh, well, we can't commit to that, so we just won't do it. You still want to be able to...
Well, I was going to say, my idea is that every child should be outside. Every child should be outside doing forest school, full fat forest school. But if they can't be out doing full fat forest school, I would prefer that they were outside doing something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rather than being stuck in the classroom all the time. And so sometimes it's finding a happy medium, sort of we can go all the way, but if the funding's not there, then we can just do bits of it.
Yeah. The same, funding or group size, we can only do it with a large group and not as many adults as it would ideally be in a forest school situation. It's still better to be outside as long as you're, safe.
But think about when I first started doing forest school, I was thinking, well, sort of this is all very well doing it with, Gordon was doing it with children with challenging behaviour. And I thought, well, that's okay, but I'm working with early years. And how would that work? And so I did it with early years. Fantastic, wonderful, worked really well. And then I thought, I've got a dyspraxic group here. How's it going to work with them? And I actually went off in all different directions and tried so many different groups to see where the limits were. And as it turns out, there aren't any. But I was out with children with hearing impairment, and we were out doing the bird songs where they had like finger puppets of birds, and we were on a school playing field with like a hedgerow with lots of trees and things, and these were children who were from their hearing impairment unit, and they were sort of a very quiet class, and we were out one day and they had the finger puppets and they were running around shouting out, "My toe bleeds, Betty, my toe bleeds," and doing all this. And the head teacher came out and he said, "I don't know what the heck you're doing out here, but I've never heard these kids make this much noise. What are you doing?" And one kid came running up and he went, Sir, do you know the birds sing?" And he just went, "Carry on."
Oh my God.
So it was, it was just one of those moments.
Oh, that's amazing. Wow.
So it's just getting children out and showing them something a bit different.
That's amazing. Something I was going to say when you mentioned about the group with the post-heart surgery patients. My husband was at a steering group meeting of the local AONB, the Blackdown Hills Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty, and they had a guest speaker from the GP surgeries network, and she was talking about how much more they are socially prescribing and prescribing, getting into nature and that kind of thing through the NHS. And I thought, I have heard of this, but I've never heard it directly from a GP.
No.
And I was thinking about the opportunities there as practitioners to work together in that way. And I don't know whether, obviously there was funding at the time for
there was funding, but we only lasted 6 weeks because that's how much the funding was. But I used to have a woodland up at Saltram, which is in Plymouth, the National Trust place.
Yeah.
And that was just absolutely great, and we used to go up there and try out lots of different activities, and it was a very peaceful thing. I didn't want them running around. But it was a very peaceful thing, and their whole auras seemed to change because they were with other people who'd been in the same position as them, but they were also sitting around the fire chatting or trying some whittling and stuff. And these were bank managers, lecturers, and sort of people who had been working in professions, suddenly finding a completely different side.
Yeah.
And because it was the majority of the group was men who don't talk about their feelings very often, it worked so well. And yes, I wish we could get more funding for that to do that sort of thing again.
Yeah.
I also used to do a group with mums, which was just women.
Yeah.
And we used to call it our cake sessions, and we used to go up to the woods and have tea and cake and make little art and craft things. Yeah. And that was just good for the soul.
Yeah.
I used to enjoy that because I like cake.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so
yeah.
It was just, sort of taking adults into a different situation,
yeah,
as well as doing all the children. And that used to be like my little break from children as well.
Yeah, we were talking about that last week, weren't we? And how
for a school for adults.
Yeah, we do get parents who've been with their kids for a long time, kind of occasionally saying to us, "Do you ever do this with just grown-ups?" And And we haven't really. We've done groups for mums and kids specifically, and
dads and
Dangerous
kids.
Dads and Muddy Mums we did for a bit, and then we kind of amalgamated those and made it Forest Families. But we haven't ever done grown-ups only kind of forest school.
Well,
and,
you should do some hen parties. They're good fun.
Oh wow!
I did handbag survival.
Tree creeper. Just here.
Oh my gosh! Look how
So
close
close.
it is. Oh, it's beautiful. You can see a tree creeper. You can actually see it munching. Look at
Oh look, and there's a wood wasp coming to land on you.
Wow! Look at it.
Sorry, hen parties.
Oh
Hen
yes,
parties.
so I got completely distracted.
Yeah.
There. Yes, I did a hen party, and it was handbag survival. And so we took out the contents of my handbag,
Yeah.
including things like bus tickets and tampons and
Yeah.
lip gloss and
Yeah.
hand gel and all that, and we worked out how we could survive.
Amazing.
Make a fire.
Amazing.
That's so weird because literally one of the mums today
Yeah,
was
yeah.
like, "Oh, did you know that on like my husband went on a coastal survival course and tampons are the ideal thing to take with you for lighting fires? It's so compact." So that's the second mention of tampons this morning. Yeah.
But this was a long time ago we did that, because I was trying to think of something that they asked if they could have forest school in the woods, and I thought, how can we make it more hen party orientated?
Yeah.
And so we did
Awesome.
handbag survival.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I've seen quite a few things of forest schools doing stag parties in a similar vein and being like, right, we're playing with axes and cook meat on the fire. Yeah.
Oh, when I had the cake group
Yeah.
up in the woods with all my ladies, and we used to go up there and do that every week. Then we decided that one day that we were going to do a family day, and so all the men, all the husbands came up, and they've been doing, the girls have been doing it for, sort of 6 months or whatever, and
Yeah.
so they were all very competent. We could go up there, put the kettle, light the
Yeah.
fire, put the kettle on, make our cup of tea, do baking on the fire, and just settle down, have chats and stuff. And all the men came in, and they were elbowing the girls out of the way,
Really?
saying, I'll do that for you,
Yeah,
dear.
yeah, yeah,
And they were all just the girls were laughing, saying, well, this is so funny.
yeah. Gender roles.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
What's I don't know.
I'm trying to think if there's any more questions that we had written down. I'm gonna
I was wondering whether you had any thoughts, because you said that you're sort of started with, going back to the books, it started with people asking for the activity diaries, and you were saying you need to have come and done it, to get the vibe of the course and to get the. Have I interpreted
but-
that right?
Yes, but the activity diaries was, I would write down the title of an activity, and then they would interpret it as they saw it when we were
Right.
doing it.
Right.
And so that's why I started writing a long-winded explanation. But I mean, there is no right and wrong way. That's just my take on it.
Yeah.
And in a couple of months' time, after doing it with a few children, it might change again, and
Yeah.
it might develop a bit more. And I sort of go springing off in all directions when opportunities present itself. And that's how most of my games and things develop, because I'll try something, it doesn't work, so I make some alterations, and
Yeah.
and at the end of the road I come across something, but that doesn't mean it's not going to change again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And did that make it at all difficult to commit to writing them down
Yes.
and also publishing it and going, this will now be, I mean, even if you write, you could write on the top of every page, this is subject to change, but there would
Yeah.
still be people that would go, actually the book says it's 3 conkers and
Yes.
this child's got 4, so I'm gonna have to punch this kid and take a conker.
Yes.
Was that something that you thought a lot about? Or?
Well, as I said, it first started off as instructions from Miranda to just give her guidelines
Yeah.
of where she was going. And
I guess when you're
Yeah.
writing that, that she knows that your ethos is to change it.
yes, well,
so
I mean,
it's
she
unsaid,
she
isn't it?
trained with me, so she knew that
Yeah.
things changed at the drop of her hat. So yes, but I mean, it just got to the stage where people were saying, the sort of, we want the diary, we want written explanations rather than you showing us and then us writing them. And so it did sort of take off that way. And when the book got so big, and I was still sort of frantically doing, my husband just said, right, okay, that's it, done.
Right.
And I was, what?
Right.
Yeah.
And so we had a quick sort of checked through. I took some bits out that didn't sort of sit well in the thing, and added a few more bits in, and we put them into some semblance of order, and then we took it off and we self-published that one, and with a company in Exeter, and they were brilliant, and they let me choose what pictures I wanted, how, you know, sort of how I wanted it laid out, and they would say, do you want it like this? And I go, no, you know, you need to make each page for a new page for each activity, and leave spaces if you can for people who might want to write notes and things in it. But so it was very much, you know, sort of how I envisioned it, how I wanted it to be.
There's a squirrel in the mud kitchen, that noise was.
Oh yeah, look at it.
Pushing over the baking pans.
He's making a cake.
Aww.
All that talk of cake groove. Decided to join in.
So was that quite a leap of faith in self-publishing it, that you had
Yes.
to invest a bit of money and hope that you were going to get it back again as well?
Well, we invested quite a bit of money in getting it done, and I was panicked. I thought people won't like it. They'll think, you know, it's a really sort of a vanity thing to do, really,
Yeah.
just to write down the things that I show people anyway.
Yeah.
And we sold out in the first couple of months, our
Amazing.
first run. So we've had several runs since then, and it's still selling well.
Yeah.
One of my sons has put it onto Amazon, and we're still selling about sort of 10 a week.
And so what? And it's through your because am I right in saying you don't see as much when it comes through Amazon?
No, we don't see as much when it comes to
Okay, so
Amazon.
where would you like people to buy it from?
I would like them to come straight to me, which is my website, which is Forest School and Outdoor Learning.co.uk.
And we can buy the second book through there as well.
Oh yes, you can buy the second book on
and
there.
the third
Well,
one.
we'll put a link in
Not
the...
not
in
the
third
early years one.
Yeah, not the early years one.
But the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will put a link in there.
Do you want to talk about the early years one? Should we not talk about the early years one?
Well, I was going to say, it is a funny story. When I wrote a chapter a long time ago for Sarah Knight in one of her books, which is Forest School for All, and I did it about the gifted and talented group that we were doing. That was actually part of my master's anyway,
Right.
and I just sort of altered it to make it sort of for that book. And I quite enjoyed the writing process, and it was quite nice to see it in print afterwards. But that was it. I got sent a free copy, and that was all I ever saw from that book. But you know, it was quite nice for the ego to think, my name's in print.
Yeah.
And then I was approached by Sage and Bloomsbury about whether I would like to write a book for them. And so we went up to London, which was quite a trip in itself with a small child, and trying to get across London on the underground and stuff in rush hour. And I went to see the people at Sage, and we had a chat with them, and then we went to the Bloomsbury offices, and I walked in there, and their office was just full of Harry Potter stuff. There were broomsticks on the ceiling, Harry Potter displays everywhere, and I was seduced.
Yeah.
And so that's why I ended up going with Bloomsbury. And yes, we've sold quite a few thousand books with them,
Right.
but I've yet to see any money from that, apart from my advance at the beginning that we spent on takeaways.
Right.
Because all my children were celebrating, because we've got six children.
Yeah.
5 are grown up and a small person. And so we had a party to celebrate that my book was coming out, and I had an advance and everything else, and that was a couple of years ago, and that's it. We've not seen anything else.
Really?
So yes.
So why is that?
Because I don't know, I think they give you pennies per book,
Right.
and I'm still paying back the £400 advance that they gave us that we
Right.
spent partying.
Right. Gosh. Okay. So,
Wow.
if you want to write a book,
Self-publish.
self-publishing is the way to go.
Self-published.
So that's what you did with the second one of those.
Yes, that's what I did with the Brown book, as I call it.
Right.
Which is the second one, and that was all the ideas that I continued writing down even after Davy had whipped off the first book to be published.
So you started the second one almost straight away.
Oh, I already had bits of it that I didn't want to put in because they were quite similar to other things in the book
Right.
that I'd taken out. So yes, I already had a big bank of things. Plus, you know, sort of people would say, well, do you remember that one that you showed us?
Yeah.
Why isn't that one in the book?
Yeah.
I was like, well. So making notes whenever anybody was sort of giving me feedback on what I'd done and saying, well, why didn't you put in that activity? I really like that activity. So we did that.
Yeah.
And you vaguely mentioned a fourth?
Yes, that is, I go around to schools anywhere in the country, whoever wants me. And so we travel up to Scotland, Wales, Kent, London, and I go and do something called Take 12, which is 12 lessons that schools can take to their grounds and do, and it is the lesson plans, and I'm sorry Liz, but it is lesson plans. But with all the activities,
I've heard you got £400 to pay back. I'm not.
Yeah, I'm frivolous with money. I just spend it on takeaways. But so it's doing the courses that I've been running with teachers to encourage them to take learning outside.
Yeah.
And the schools have the feedback that I've had from those have been really good, and so I then did Take 12 more, which is the next sort of 12 lessons, and so I'm in the process of writing the next 12 lessons, and we've got a year's worth of lessons that a teacher can just go print out the bits that they need, look at the list, take out the bits that they need, and go out and deliver. So it's not forest school, it's outdoor learning for schools.
But we talk about a lot of, to clarify, I'm not advocating burning all lesson plans and resources.
But they do make good fire starters.
They do. I think it's that thing of meeting people where they are is like the massive umbrella that I always hold in my head. And if meeting people where they are means they need 12 or 24 or 36 lessons, like 36 lessons is not the rest of their teaching career sorted and doing whatever. So if someone needs that, it's a bit like, you were saying, if it can't be forest school, at least they go out. If it can't be 100% this adult has made it up and child led this, then where do we need to start so that you can get more comfortable to get there? And so
and through doing your lesson plans, then that might spur some activity down the line in that teacher's career and with that class. Oh yes, I saw what they did there when I did that part of that lesson. They really latched onto that, so I'm going to do more of that next week, and I don't need the lesson plan for that because I've done that lesson and I know where I'm going to go next.
So it's something that is a gentle prod to take the children out, get everybody outside.
And you, a bit like we were saying earlier, the FSA lends some weight to people's, standing up for what they want to do. You going into a school, you might be speaking to those troublemaker teachers that wanted to go out anyway, but now the head's bought into something. You've given them the license, if you like, to say, well, we're going out. Do you remember you had Tracey in for that, and she gave us that, and we've got to get the school's money worth. They'd be going out.
Well,
anyway,
I was going to say, when I go in, I really do push sending off the really enthusiastic teachers for forest school training.
Right.
I always say that is what you're trying to achieve. But in the meantime, we can get everybody out. And I go in there and I get the most reluctant teachers, people who have never stepped outside the classroom before, who don't like anything to do with bugs or dirt or anything, to get them outside and to be doing things, because what I teach them is a lot of the activities from the first book that anybody can do. And it's not dangerous, it's not too challenging for the adults, but it's exciting for the children. It's not forest school, but it's teetering on the edge. And eventually they'll all tumble over straight into forest school and all.
Of course.
It's just a little sweetener to get everybody thinking, this is a good idea, let's get outside.
It does make me think. I wonder, so Gemma and I were at the Somerset Play Forum a couple of weeks ago doing some storytelling, and we talked about that on the podcast, and we were saying about how there's sort of adults that work in forest school alongside you you know, like forest school assistants and TAs and teachers and things like that. And then there's another setting where you're like, I am teaching to adults. It's adult to adult learning. And we were saying about how that's a lot very different and has a lot of different challenges. And just as you were talking there, I was thinking about that you were saying the reluctant teachers, and they seem to gravitate towards me, the reluctant people. I end up getting stuck and getting wound up and more sweary and trying to just be like, but come on, isn't this exciting? And I think I wonder whether part of it is that if I had a group of children and you were doing that, you know, if you do your observation and you go, oh, you need a little bit of hand there, or actually I reckon you'll be better off doing something else. With children, because they get into flow a little bit more easily, you can go, oh, do you want to go and try this with me? They go and try a thing, and then they're immediately off and in flow. But whether adults are particularly, like, so much more self-conscious that they're aware that, oh, the group's going to see me going away and I'm not doing what the rest of the group, you know, kids go like, you guys are playing dens, fuck that, I'm painting, right? And I'm happy painting. But an adult, even though they might need to paint, and you know, like you're saying, they might need to do an activity that's safer or that meets them where they are, but there's a social construct of like, well, I'm not allowed to be seen to be different. Do you know what I'm going with this? I'm sort of wandering around in a circle.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, when I'm with adults, I try to make them as comfortable as possible. Yeah. And if something is too far out of their comfort zone, then I don't push it. Mm-hmm. I mean, as I always say, you know, sort of, I'm not Bear Grylls. I'm not going to make you eat elephant poo.
Yeah.
You know, sort of, this is what we're going out. It's going to be fun. And if you feel uncomfortable at any point, then that's absolutely fine. Yeah. If you want a coffee break, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so everybody comes out with me, and I know it sounds big-headed, but they tend to come out saying that they've been inspired after what they've done. And I've had many notes back from head teachers saying, I don't know what you did, but you know, they're all outside today, you know, the day after I've been up there, or you know, they've been collecting up sticks and leaves, you know, and bringing them all into school, or I've got an office full of pine cones. Because teachers who have previously wouldn't even contemplate doing outdoor learning suddenly get, actually, it's not hard. And that is the thing that I try to put over. It's not hard. Anybody can do it. You can get yourself out, and if it starts you on your little footsteps on the way to forest school, that is brilliant. If it doesn't, and you're comfortable playing on the edge of the playground, that's fine as well. But at least it's outdoors.
It's amazing, isn't it? Because probably, especially with we talk quite a lot about like generational differences. So I'm 10 years older than Lewis, and so when I'm talking about childhood memories and my play experiences, Lewis will be like, no, I didn't do that. And so with younger teachers, maybe not so much, but with teachers over a certain age, probably all of them were playing outside as children, but then they become so disconnected through their adult life that the idea of taking a bunch of kids outside, it's so alien.
Or that they know how stupid and dangerous they were as children, and they go, dear God, if I take the children out, they're going to go do what I did. And I'm like, that was stupid.
Well, I was going to say, when I was a child, from about the age of 5, we would just let go. We did live in the countryside, but we had to be home before the street lights came on outside our house, and that was it. So, I mean, I am quite a lot older than anybody else here. In fact, I think I could probably be your mother's. But yes, I mean, you know, sort of attitudes have changed, and I think that one of the main attitudes to why people feel that children shouldn't be allowed to roam as much now is 24-hour news. Because it used to be that the news was on at tea time and again before you went to bed, and you would hear the main stories of the day, and you wouldn't hear all the scare stories. Now the news, they pick up stories from Facebook, and you know, half of it's not true. They're just trying to fill up a gap, and so there's so many scare stories that parents and teachers are so worried.
What's the phrase? If it bleeds, it leads. That's apparently a newspaper thing. If it's got blood on it, goes further up the newspaper.
And so I do blame 24-hour news on children having their sort of wandering time really restricted.
And it's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, because so my childhood was Like, I wasn't allowed just to go out. I mean, that might have been my parents, but I definitely wasn't. You know, my parents had to know where I was going, and then they would. My parents. Yeah, they would ring whoever I was to be like, did he get there in like half an hour? To be like, they just needed to know where I was. It wasn't a like go home, but like, it's almost like when everybody's out on the street, everybody's watching each other, and then less people go in. So actually, less people go out. So actually, it is then less people to see. And now, if you did send your kids out off to play in the local woodland,
you would have social services that you don't.
Yeah, but it might also just be your kids in there. So there isn't like a gang of everyone in your village, and someone could very quickly go, Jesus Christ, Gemma's fallen out of a tree. Let's help. You know, it just and sort of a self-fulfilling spiral of, you know, what's that thing? We always move towards less liberty and more safety. It's harder to argue that, like, I think it should be more dangerous because no one will come along with you.
Except for us. We're all going to always say, risk is good, risky play is good.
Just make that a bit worse.
Yeah.
Just sharpen that one.
Well, I was going to say, the only sort of major accident I've ever had is a teacher who stabbed himself in the knee with a knife. All the children were, "Sir, you don't do it like that.
Really?
Tracy would not be happy if you're doing it like that." And he was whittling.
Oh,
and I said, "Please don't do that." And he's going, "I think I know how to whittle."
way.
Because people can't see, you're miming whittling essentially into your own kneecap.
Yes.
Like on your thigh, into your kneecap. That is.
And you literally told him, and he turned around and said to you, "I know what I'm doing."
The children were all doing it correctly. They all had their safe space. They were all standing up, and he was sort of sat down doing this, and he ended up stabbing himself in the knee. It was okay.
Yeah.
But
he felt a twat though.
I don't think he noticed.
Really?
But he noticed he stabbed himself. Of course. Yeah. But you know, I don't think he noticed what a silly boy he'd been.
Yeah. Wow. Because you do, we encounter sometimes that, like, not people whittling into their knee.
It's different,
but
isn't it?
It's
different
there are
with
occasions
children.
where we have a phrase. It's like, "Oh, okay, you may do it that way, but while we're here, we're just gonna do it our way."
Well, I was going to say,
for
me, my biggest liabilities have been adults.
Yeah.
So not the children. I find with children, if you give children rules and they want to do something like using tools or using fire, then they will follow your rules, and you'll say, you know, well, you have to have your safe space, you have to be standing up, you have to always work away from you must never walk with knives, you always go back into the bag, and children would do that.
Yeah.
But adults are a bit complacent, and you know, your rules don't apply to them because they're not children.
Yeah.
So.
And I guess maybe adults feel more able to do their own risk assessment, even though they haven't got the training that whoever's leading the courses, but they kind of go, I know how to be safe with a knife. Come on, well, like you're saying that, man. I know how to whittle. I know how to do this, whatever. And that's often more of the worry, isn't it?
It is. So I do worry more having adults.
What you should do is give them set lesson plans. Give them maybe 12 of them to keep them in line.
That's what I'm doing. Yeah. As I say, what I do is when you get adults out who are perhaps a bit more challenging, perhaps stopping children doing what they need to do, is that I then find them tasks, and they will then be put in charge of something. Like the scissors and the string. The children have to come up and estimate how much string they want if you've got a big group, or put them in charge of the fire.
Yeah.
And make them the fire monitor when you're off doing other things.
That's a good idea.
That usually works very well. And you find the adults that that really don't want to be there, who've been sent out by the head teacher.
Yeah.
And who really don't want to play.
Yeah.
We have some of our parents that come to our groups though listen to this podcast though, so we won't be able to give them any jobs, even legitimately now. Because if we ask them to do anything, they're going to be like, "Are you trying to fob me off? Am I trying to?"
No, that's not saying that all people who do jobs.
No. Sometimes you legitimately need a job done.
I was going to say, if you've got adults coming here, then they're coming here because they want to come here.
Yeah.
It's not like a head teacher saying, right, today you are in the woods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I always used to send out letters saying to, you know, can all children and adults be dressed appropriately. Coats, boots, you know, hats and things. And I did have one lady turn up in white suede high heel boots to come to the woods with me. I was like, I don't think, she said, they're boots.
Right.
I'm not changing my fashion for you, they're boots. I said, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not changing my lesson for you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But yeah, they do. Some people do find it hard, don't they? It's just like, you know, and so I think giving them jobs is like, even people who are like, we talked about that feeling where if you're sort of earlier on in your journey to true forest school, you might have these weird times, especially if you've been a teacher or worked with children a lot in a more traditional setting, where you think, I don't feel like I'm doing anything, and this feels really alien to me because I'm used to, I'm making you all do this now, and I'm walking around and I'm checking
good
that
pace
you're
to your
doing
lessons,
it.
well done.
Yeah, and you're
Good
always
thing.
completely, you've got, you know, a good lesson might be one of those ones where you really feel like everyone's on task, you know. That's
And I talked to everyone,
phrase,
and
on
I did, you know.
task. I haven't said that out loud for ages, and it's just made me go, weird.
One thing I always do, if anybody has a whistle, I confiscate them.
Ah.
I do not
we
allow
talk about the
whistles.
birds. We just say that we don't want to disturb the birds, so they can come out for periods of time, but not all day.
Oh no! Even if I'm on a school playground, I confiscate the whistle.
Oh,
no
as a
whistles
status
allowed.
thing.
Oh yes.
Oh, I was thinking children just constantly hooting.
Grown-ups.
That's what.
No. This
Whistles.
is the adults. We're still talking about adults.
Yeah.
So, but yes. So no adults are allowed out with whistles or teacher voices.
I had a
interesting.
teacher once go completely the opposite way, in that he brought out a camping chair and like sat at the edge of the fit. So we're 30 meters away from. He was the adult helper, and he sat in a camping chair 30 meters away from the closest child. The furthest child was, long gone in the woods, and he did genuinely sat down at the start and then got up when I was like, okay, it's time to go back to school now, and it just
So he wasn't worried about, oh, what am I supposed to be doing? He was like, brilliant.
It was that thing of and I sort of reflected on it myself, and I was like, when I was a teacher, if the school had hired someone to come in on a Friday afternoon, which it was, to take my class out, I'd have mentally gone, not working. Friday afternoons are off now, and I wouldn't have engaged with it and done whatever. So I then, did try and pull him in and say, oh, can you do this? Or, I quite often will send myself out on errands that mean that I can't do a different thing. So I'm like, I'm gonna go and I'm really busy playing with these guys. Can you watch that group over there, or can you go and do that? So that it's not just here's a manual labour task. It's a genuine could you interact with them, because I'm interacting with them, and that did pull him in the end.
Yeah.
Got him out of his chair.
Yeah.
Result.
Yeah.
Right. I'm
Yeah.
very happy.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah,
it was
thank you
really
for
lovely
coming.
to speak to you again. And I'm going to go back to your second book because you've got it.
I
And
have.
I haven't read it yet, so I'm
Have
going
you
to. No, I've only read this one. So I think you've suggested some of the
I
activities.
speed read it in, I think, the day it came out, and took pictures of about 20 pages and immediately sent them to Gemma and was like, we're doing all of these.
Yeah. That was quite a long time ago now.
It was quite.
So,
yeah.
That was last August that book came out, and I think you were the first person to buy it, weren't you?
Was I really?
Well, I had about 40 that I sold before. And
Okay.
you was in that pile of 40.
I know I was early.
Yeah.
But I would. Yeah.
Yeah. So
That was.
You're the first person that sent me a picture of themselves with the
There we go. That was it. Yeah, just sight unseen. This will be a good book.
Yeah.
I'll have one of them.
Yeah.
And it was.
Thank you.
It still is.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming down.
Yeah. Thank you very
I've
much.
got quite a few activities for the number 3 of that series as well. So,
Cool.
but I'm sort of I need to get out and play a bit more.
So do you have?
to try out some other things?
Is there a timeline people could be looking out for?
Oh no, not for that one. That one
No.
will happen when it happens. When
Right.
when I've got enough to fill up a book.
Yeah.
I've got some.
You're not planning another maternity to get this one done.
No, definitely. I definitely can't have any more children. I'm far too old now. But I'm waiting to become a grandmother. My children are being very bad about that. Though.
Selfish.
Selfish, yes.
How dare they? But right. That's good. We'll finish that one there. Bye.